is what I want to achieve, get a work permit, learn the language, get a professional job, get into something that can help me gain a professional job. And then we are just tossed by the storm to and fro. Whatever comes our way, we just take it as it is, and then we accept anything. Hello, lovely viewers. Welcome once again to Feature on the channel. Today, we want to talk about redefining the African approach to migration. Redefining the African approach to migration. And the reason for this topic, or the motivation for this discussion, is basically about we as Africans, what our perception has been over the years, why we come into this country, into the Western countries in the Western Hemisphere, and we don't succeed as much as people from other continents. When I talk about other continents, I'm talking specifically about the Jews, the Asians, the Middle Easterners, and then the Chinese. Comparatively, Africans and then these other people seem to be at a great variation when it comes to progress in these other countries. So viewers, before we continue with the approach of these various people group, we want to look at the reasons, the varied reasons for which people migrate to foreign lands generally. So the reasons may vary. Apart from the early days of slavery, currently people migrate for various reasons. One of these reasons will be for education, pursuit of higher education. So people from all over the world would move to another place to pursue further education. Another reason is for family reunion. A spouse, a husband or wife may relocate to a foreign land, and for that reason his or her wife would have to join, his or her wife or husband would have to join him or her in this foreign land, and by so the second person coming to join the spouse becomes a migrant by default. Children also join their parents in foreign lands so that they can have a family reunion, which is also very healthy. Another reason for which people migrate into foreign lands is for greener pastures, and then also for refugee purposes, to seek refuge. So there have been instances where there are one form of chaos or the other in a person's country, and for that reason he or she would want to seek for refuge in another land. And these are amongst the varying reasons. Other reasons include things like adoption and so on and so forth. So now let us look at the Jewish approach. What do the Jews do differently that makes them excel in a foreign land, most particularly in countries in the Western Hemisphere? So the Jews actually prepare their children for life wherever they find themselves. What they do, their first approach is that they prepare their children for life wherever they find themselves. And what do we mean by they preparing their children for life? What we mean by that is that they teach them survival skills. So apart from the fact that they may have their own primary careers ranging from medicine to architecture to information technology, banking and finance, just to mention a few, they teach them other survival skills, things like carpentry, things like painting, things like basket making, and so on and so forth. And they teach them these things just for the reason that should they get into a foreign land and then they do not find what they want to do at a particular time, they can use any of these skills and then survive for the time being. So what they do is that they have these secondary skills which are varied, which are general practical skills that they fall on in a foreign land should they not be finding what they have been trained primarily in terms of their career to do. So whilst they are doing these things, they are looking for other opportunities, they are looking for things around their own field, and for that reason they cut across all human endeavor. And their approach is generally that you make it where you are as big as you can. So the approach of the Jews is to make it where you are as big as you can. So they take possession of the place. They come with the intention that we are here and we're supposed to make it big. That has been the Jewish number one approach, to make it where they are as big as they can. And that is what they do. In spite of this, even though they have this mentality of making it where they are as big as they can, they still have the general mindset of going back to their home one day. So they do not forget their roots. So historically, we know of rich Israeli billionaires or Jewish billionaires who have burial places built all the way back in Mount Moriah, that even though peradventure they should die in a foreign land, they would want to be taken back home for their burial. So the Jews, in as much as they want to make it big as much as possible wherever they find themselves, they also have a mindset of going back to their roots one day, returning back to Israel, returning back to Jerusalem. That has been the Jewish approach. The second approach that the Jews take is that they create an intentional approach of enriching their fellow Jews. They have an intentional approach of enriching their fellow Jews. What we mean by this is that a Jew would always want to empower his or her other Jewish brother or sister, and by so, should they be selling or should he want something to buy, purchase an item, he would first of all resort to a Jewish shop, and then he will only buy from a non-Jew if that thing cannot be found in a Jewish shop. And by this reason, they create a cyclical economic community. The money remains within the Jewish community, even in a foreign land. So that has been the Jewish approach. So one, they have the mindset of that, of making it big as much as they can wherever they are. And irrespective of that, they still have the mindset of going back to their roots one day. And then also, they intentionally decide to enrich their fellow Jews by so empowering them in their services, the service that they render, to buy from a Jew other than buying from another person. So that is the Jews for you. Another people group is the Asians. When we talk about the Asians, we're talking about the Indians, the Pakistans, the Bangladeshi, excluding the Chinese. So all other Asian groups, excluding the Chinese. And these people also, just like the Jews, migrate into a community and make it their home. What they do is that when they get into a community, they decide that we have come and we have arrived. This is our new home. They adopt the new home, the new environments, the new community as theirs. So they don't have the mindset of going back. And this helps them to be focused on whatever they do. So just like the Jews, the Asians also will start on anything they find their hand on. They will start on menial jobs, kind of. Something very basic, something that we may consider meager in quotes, and then from there they'll be looking for another opportunity to get a better job or something that they aspire to really do. However, the Asians do not resort to getting employed by people, like by the system only. What they do is that they find gaps in the community in which they are, and then they try to bridge that gap by creating employment in those areas. So they create success by looking for a human need in whichever community they may find themselves, and then in terms of meeting this human need, they find success. So they come to a community, they realize that there is a gap in hospitality or food purchase or so on and so forth, and for that reason they decide that we are going to create an organization or an industry for ourselves, make it our own, and employ our own people. So they don't wait to be employed by other people, but in the pursuit of a greener pasture, in the pursuit of getting a good job, they find gaps in the community. They kind of want to bridge those gaps, and then by so they create employment for themselves and employ other people as well. The advantage to this is that they become focused on their endeavors, and they build equity and financial capacity for the future. They build equity and financial capacity for the future. So that is the Asian approach. And they are conspicuous. Because of this approach, they are conspicuous. What we mean is that they can be found in you can really find them when you get to every environment. You find something Asian. To be frank, most of our African food, if you want anything Afro-Caribbean to purchase, you are likely to buy it from an Asian person, because they find that industry as something lacking in almost every community, and then they make it their own. So almost all the Afro-Caribbean shops in Western lands are mostly owned by the Asians. They make it their own. They employ people there, and then they make it what they want to vent into. Yeah, yet another people group is the Chinese. The Chinese. So the Chinese on migration, what they do is that they set out to conquer a nation. They totally set out, when they enter into a nation, they totally set out to conquer it and make it theirs. So they have the mindset of that we are here to take over. They are not here just to make it, but they are here to take over. That is the Chinese mindset. So they begin just like the Jews by starting on every other odd jobs, whatever their hand will find to do. And what they do is that they start in a small neighborhood, a small niche. So they form something like a community for Chinese, a small Chinese community, and then they start up from there. And from there, they want to conquer into other towns and villages around them. So they build enclaves. What they do is they build enclaves and they make it like a Chinatown. They make a prototype of their country. They create a small of China in the new country in which they are. And then from there, they begin to dig into other areas of that country. So they have what they do is they build enclaves, and these enclaves are like the Chinatowns. So in all of the big countries, all the big cities all over the world, you find the Chinatown, right from Toronto to New York to Paris to London, and so on and so forth. Everywhere you go, you find the Chinatown there. And when they get there, all of their mindset is to take over, to conquer that town and to take over it. So they start from a small place, they delve into other areas, and then they begin to take over. That is the Chinese for you. So that has been the Chinese approach. So the Chinese, they also build their community by supporting each other. And then again, like the Jews, they also have practical skills that they come with, particularly with native cuisine. So they'll come and then they will learn their own food and how to prepare their own meals. They come with that knowledge already. And then they create Chinese restaurants, they create Chinese communities, and they do their own Chinese stuff there. They make that country their own. They create a prototype of China in the new environment in which they find themselves, and then their aim is to conquer the new place. And once they are there, they venture into they begin to invest into other things like technological advancements, and their motive is that they want to build on what they already know and take it back into China. So they gain technological expertise and skills, and then they take it back to their homeland to build their country. By so they've developed their country so much, and over a period of like 3 to 4 decades, 30 to 40 years, China has taken over the world. They become the second superpower in the world. Apart from US, China is now all over, taking grounds, breaking grounds, and making it big. They've really conquered. They kind of want to conquer, and they are conquering now. So that is the Chinese for you. They come in and they want to take over. Another people group that I want us to discuss is the Middle Easterners, which include the Syrians, the Lebanese, and then the Egyptians. So they also emulate both the Asian and then the Chinese approach. They have a little bit of the Asian and then a little bit of the Chinese as well. And what they do is that they come in and then they look for a place like an organization that they want to make their own, and then they employ their own people. So they come in, they get one person, one Middle Easterner as a front to get into new and well-to-do industries of the new land in which they are. They employ their own people there. Another thing about the Middle Easterners is that they have financial backers from back home. So people back home, you know, these countries are rich with oil. If you go to countries like Dubai, Qatar, and so on and so forth, Saudi Arabia, they are actually rich in terms of oil and all that. So they support their natives in other countries to make it and make it big. And when they win over an organization situation. Let's say they come and then they purchase a very big bank or an industry in the new land. They employ their own only, and then they make it like a kind of a front for other people who are coming, other Middle Easterners, to also gain employment. They support each other as well. So this has been the approach of the Jewish, the Asians, the Chinese, and the Middle Easterners. Now I would want us to have a general overview or a look at the African approach, what Africans do and what we do differently, and the reasons why we don't have a very good story to tell as compared to our other brethren, other migrants from other continents. What is our other brethren, and what is it that we do and we don't do, we do that is kind of faulty. So the African, first of all, have what we call the undecisive approach. Just like all other migrants, we come with varied reasons, from gaining educational pursuits, wanting to gain greener pastures, to join family members for reunion, and then also to seek refuge, just to mention a few. So it's the same reason, just like for all other migrants, that we as Africans also come into the Western Hemisphere. But most of the times, most Africans come in and are undecided from the very beginning. From the very beginning, you ask most Africans, you talk to Africans and they're like, I'm not going to be here for so long, I'm just going to be here for a short period of time, and my intention is to go back, and I can't stay in this cold and with all these stress in this country. So we have this mindset, and then all of our mindset is going back home, going back home, going back home. And for that reason, we are so undecided. We don't take any plans, we don't take any strategic plans or strategic moves, and then we are just tossed by the storm to and fro. Whatever comes our way, we just take it as it is, and then we accept anything. Our mindset is just to get money and to get it anyhow. So after all, we have money, and for that reason, what is the need for wanting to better our lives? So we come in and we don't think of getting a place for ourselves that we can call our home. We resort to renting a place for the rest of our lives, because from the very beginning we are thinking that I'm going to be here for just a short period of time, so there's no need purchasing a house or anything for myself. Just go by the storm and then get a little and go back home. This undecisive approach keeps a lot of Africans stuck in one place. We are unable to move on because from the very onset we have not decided anything. And so long as you are undecided, you can't have any concise plans to start with. That has always been the problem. The second approach of most Africans is the gone but not gone approach. The gone but not gone approach. What we mean by the gone but not gone approach is that for most Africans, we are here, but we are still back home. All of our mindset and our thinking is still about home. Our plans is still about home. So for a person who kind of has this gone but not gone mindset, you see that even if you want to buy food, you want to convert it back to your native currency and then to compare the value of that money in your currency. So for example, you want to buy food for like £2, £3, or $3, $2, or whatever, and then you convert it into maybe cedis or naira, and then you're like, oh, this one is £1, it's going to be like 7 cedis or six cedis. That is a lot of money. So we don't even want to do anything for ourselves here. All of our plans are back home, and then right from the onset, immediately we start getting money from the jobs that we do. The very first money we get, every money that we get, we take it back home to buy a plot of land, to start building a house and all that. And as we keep doing that, we get stuck in the process, because we unfortunately, whatever we do, we are foreigners in a foreign land. We are strangers in a foreign land. So we don't have the luxury of having family members who would want to keep you in their house whilst you sort out a few things. You still would have to rent a place, pay bills, be struggling with transportation, employment and all that, and then every little money we get, we take it back home. So then we are in between, we are torn in between here and there. We are not able to live a comfortable and then a safe life here, and then we still want to prove a point. You know, the reason why most people keep this approach is because we want to kind of prove a point to people back home, to families and friends back home, that we came and then we've arrived, we are doing well here. But there is no point, there is no need to prove a point to anyone. We just have to take care of ourselves first, and then by extension, we can do something good back home. And we also, I just want us not to remember, not to forget that the Jewish also have the intention of going back home one day, but all the same, they try as much as possible to make it big and comfortable where they are, so that by extension they can go back home and do something better for their family and for themselves and for their country back home. So that has been the gone but not gone approach, and that is not too healthy for us. That doesn't make us excel in the foreign land in which we are. The third approach that most Africans use is what we call the deadweight approach. The deadweight approach. The deadweight approach is actually creating a snare for ourselves, creating a trap, a snare for ourselves in general. So, you know, people are here and then immediately they are able to kind of talk about borrowing, you know, getting a loan or qualified for a loan or anything. They immediately go for a loan, a huge sum of money, and then they invest into something back home. Meanwhile, they don't have any investments here to support what they are doing. So once you are here, you are paying for a loan and an interest for something that you've invested back home. And then most of the times, it doesn't even yield the results that we expect to see. People end up abusing all these investments back home. Please don't get me wrong by this. I'm not saying that we should not make any form of investments back home, but the thing is that we need to build a certain life for ourselves, make ourselves comfortable, create a room where we can, you know, comfortably go back home and do something really big. You understand? We don't have to put ourselves in a tight corner where we are here paying loans back home and then also trying to sort out our own expenditure here, trying to pay bills, trying to pay our rent, and struggling with all of these things. At the end of the day, it doesn't yield anything. People actually get overwhelmed by all of these stresses and then sometimes even run away from the country, and it doesn't help in any way. So that is the deadweight approach. Being in a country, immediately going for a loan, and then starting an investment back home, and paying with every penny that you get here for that loan, as well as the interests. Another approach is the enslaving ourselves for our people back home. Enslaving ourselves for our people back home. So this is basically a result of sometimes a result of the deadweight approach. Because you've gone for a loan and you've started an investment back home, it becomes like a kind of an enslavement in which you've put yourself in. You've enslaved yourself, and then sometimes the investment is serving as an economic, you know, ground for someone else in your home country. Someone is using that to better him or herself, and then taking care of their own stuff whilst you are struggling in here. So in effect, you enslave yourself for other people, which is not the best. Another form of this enslavement can be seen when we want to provide the daily meals for our families and friends. So people get here, and then all the mindset is for us to help family back home. And you know, again, don't get me wrong in this regard. It is good to help. That should be the mindset. That whilst you are here and life becomes better for you, you'd want to help another person to gain a certain ground. But in our quest to help people, we have to be strategic. We have to be strategic in the kind of help that we provide. Our help should be to invest in people so that they can gain a sort of a financial independence, a sort of a self-dependence, whereby they are not dependent on you any longer. For how long can you keep providing food for all all of your brothers and your sisters and your nieces and nephews, your well-abled siblings. It is just impossible. What we can do is to invest in people so that they gain an economic grounding, economic stability, and then financial stability where they can also cater for themselves and other people. Other than that, all of the burden of providing a daily meal always for family back home will wear you out whilst you are in a foreign land. So Africans work their lives, like they work themselves to death just to provide a daily meal for family members. And the truth is, people will always say no. People will never say no to your provision of their daily meal. But the thing is, it is better if you are able to invest into people to gain that kind of a financial stability for themselves and cater for themselves. Of course, we all do sometimes take care of nieces and nephews here and there, trying to help them in their education and all that. That is the ideal thing. Actually, if you are helping someone, it should be, let's say, in learning a trade or helping them in their education, so that at the end of the day they get some kind of a financial stability and be able to cater for themselves, so that that strain and that stress will be taken off your shoulders. So that has been another approach, slaving ourselves for the good of other people back home, and it is a very big strain on us as Africans. That is another approach that really drains us and doesn't cause us to forge ahead. One thing we should notice that you can only give as much as you can. So for you to be able to help people and help them well, you need to help yourself well, to gain some stability for yourself. If you have to pursue a certain education, if you have to get a certain form of profession so that you can gain some financial independence, then you'll be in a good position to help another person. But if you're struggling yourself, you can only help people in drops and in drips, and this will not be too good for you yourself and then also for the person you intend to help. So that has been one approach that really drains us as Africans. So then, my fellow brothers and sisters, what then is the result of all these approaches, the African approaches that we've been using over time? The Deadweight approach, the gone but not gone approach, sacrificing ourselves for the good of other people, and then the Undecided approach. The result is that we fail to connect economically with other migrants to create a paracyclical economy. We fail to connect economically with other migrants to create a paracyclical economy. We are not able to be at par with people. We always end up being the surplus workforce. We are always kind of the minority. You know, to be able to come out of these kind of things, we have to re-strategize, we have to plan, we have to change our approach and then be strategic in what we do. We have to invest in ourselves. We have to go beyond always wanting to help just in the here and now. And then even in our help, we should decide that we want to help people invest in themselves and then also gain some financial stability for themselves. Other than that, we'll always be struggling. So the solution for this is that we have to re-evaluate the things we do. We have to make up our mind that in our investments, we are investing in people. We have to make up our mind also that we would make it here, and by extension, be able to go home and be well prepared for the future ahead of us. Our approach should be resolute and decisive. That should be our new approach, and we should learn from our other fellow migrants what they do, so that we can be able to live a comfortable life, and then we also will not be a byword any longer. We will not be a mockery any longer. So sometimes it is difficult to make a decision from the very beginning when you come into a foreign land, because sometimes you'd want to know how the place is, know the culture and all that, and then by so you can't really decide from the very beginning. If that is the case, what we can do is that we have to decide in time frame. we have to decide in time frame. What we mean by deciding in time frame simply is, you give yourself a number of years. So you say that, okay, so from year 1 to year 3 or year 4, this is what I have to do. I would have to make sure that whatever thing that I would need to be able to stay in this country, if need be, if that becomes the ultimate plan later on, I'm able to achieve it. So you get your work permits, you learn the language and the culture if applicable. So in certain countries you have to learn their language before you can get a job and all that. So if that is what applies, you give yourself a time frame that's from year 1 to year 4 or year 3. This is what I want to achieve. Get a work permit, learn the language, get a professional job, get into something that can help me gain a professional job and all that, so that peradventure you have to stay in the country, then you have a good footing or a good foundation. And then also for students who are here for a short while, maybe you may decide that, okay, I would want to go back home. I just want to learn and then get my education and go back home. That is also not bad. But in as much as you are here to if that is your plan, to come for your education and then go back home, then you have to make sure that you learn as much as you can, gain all the skills and the expertise that you need, so that if you go back home and you're applying for a job, you have good certification, or if you want to start your own business, you have the good skills and expertise to be able to start well. So that is one thing we also have to understand. And then we also have to learn to establish ourselves where we are now. We have to understand that life is not a competition. There is no point trying to prove a point to anyone. There is no use of that, trying to prove a point to other people that you came and you didn't fail. So then from the very beginning, you want to show to everyone that when I got to Europe, or when I got to US, or when I got to UK, within the first 2 years, I was able to buy a land back in Ghana or in Nigeria, and I was able to build a house, and then to show to family and friends. Life is not a race. Life is not a competition with anyone. We just have to make sure that we build ourselves very well, so that in the future, if we have to go back home, we are going back home well prepared and well settled for our lives back home. Remember again that the Jewish always have the mindset to go back home, but whilst they are in a foreign land, they make sure that they make it, and they make it big in the new land in which they are. So let us put in this approach. Instead of being in the country undecided for, let's say, 2 to 3 years renting, and then you have the intention of going back after 3 years or after 5 years, and then you realize that after 5 years you are still here and you have not made any preparation for yourself to stay in well. So then you become a perpetual renter. If there is a word like that, you become someone renting for the rest of your life. How about you saving some money, getting a mortgage, and paying within a period of, let's say, 10 to 15 years, and then you'll be able to be financially stable and go home, build a big house and the big company that you want to build. Another thing is that we have to learn to invest in people rather than providing in drops and in drips, providing on a daily basis. You invest in people if you can, and so help them to gain their financial freedom, their economic stability, and to be able to cater for themselves eventually. And then also, if you want to invest back home and you know that you can't control the process or you can't monitor the investments, I think until you have gotten someone trustworthy, like someone you can really trust, don't start it. Don't start it. You would have to make sure that you are able to control the process or have someone you can trust. Other than that, it is not worth the pain. So let us from now on begin to plan strategically, invest in our own self, build our lives here whilst in a foreign land, and then stop being taking up mediocre stances, taking up anything goes, just to make ends meet, just to And there is no need, again, there is no need trying to prove a point. So in summary, we as Africans would have to redefine our approach to migration. We will have to redefine our general approach, what we've been doing in the past, and then have a mindset of doing something better for ourselves. That is basically what I want us to talk about today. Thank you very much for spending time with us on Faith Channel 3 channel. We would see you again another time. Please do well to subscribe to this channel. Click on the like button. Send in your comments. And for this particular video, I would want you to share as much as possible to your friends and family and your loved ones. Especially Africans overseas, for them to know that we'd have to redefine our approach and then turn the tables for Africa. Thank you so much for being with us. Stay blessed. Bye.